also resuscitating the abandoned 26 small and medium-sized hydro plants across the country with solar hybridization. This will adopt embedded power model with connectivity to the regional distribution network. This is so easy. It doesn't have to go through the national grid. We have small dams with 10 megawatts, 6 megawatts, 1 megawatt across. We have one in Oyo State, Ikere Gorge Dam. We have one in Ogun State, Oyo, and we have across Nigeria. If we rehabilitate this, we're going to be supplying additional power to the states. And they don't need to go to the national grid on the 330 or 132 kV lines. They will be on the 33 kV line within the distribution network of the state. And this will be backup power. Then we are completing the 20 megawatt wind solar hybrid power plant in Katsina State. We have completed the 10 megawatts wind. We are now hybridizing it with a solar of another 10 megawatts. Once we complete that, that's another 20 megawatts coming from Katsina State. And we are completing the infrastructure required for complete evacuation of there is a 30 megawatt Gurara Dam power plant.
So many projections, coming from the Minister of Power there under the new administration that makes you look forward to something significant happening there. We hope that in no distant time this will happen. But when we look at, the past, successive administrations have promised to deliver on 24 hours uninterrupted power supply with very little tangible results. So, what are we to expect from the position expressed by the Minister of Power that there must be an unbundling because government is owing discos and gencos to the tune of trillions of dollars in one case and trillions of naira in another case? Let's have that conversation as we look at the power situation. We have joining us Barrister Sunday Oduton. Barrister Sunday Oduton is the Executive Director, Association of Nigeria Electricity Distributors, ANED. Thank you for joining us thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Thank you. Good morning.
I want to start this way. Industry data suggests that in the last 5 years or thereabout, the power grid has experienced about 232 collapses. First of all, what is responsible for these collapses? Perhaps you could explain to us in clear language. And over the years, why has the Ministry of Power been unable to rein in on the collapses?
Thank you very much. I would like to just keep this thing away from technicality. Let me just break it down in a way that our viewers will understand. Every time we talk about grid collapse, and what we do mainly in this country is to look for someone to blame. Somebody has to take the blame. I think, and even right now I can see on your screen when you put generation and distribution challenge. It is actually generation, transmission, and distribution challenge. The value chain is challenged because the issue revolves around liquidity. Unlike the telecom, the power sector at the point of privatization required a lot of investment. And when you talk about investment, you also have to talk about cost recovery. Channel TV is still here many years after its establishment because it's been able to recover its costs of producing all this program and, doing this business. In every business, there's a need for the businessman to be able to put money into business and then recover the cost. Even where there's no profit, you still need to recover your costs. So in the case of the power sector, the problem has been, it's been a long journey, a major problem. We started privatization in 2013. I can say with fact and figure that, yes, a lot of progress has been made. But Nigerians, what Nigerians want is electricity. They don't want stories or want to hear why is it. They just say, just give us electricity. But Nigerians also need to understand that electricity is not a social service, not anymore. Electricity is a product like bread or any other product. It has to be paid for. Somebody has to pay for it. And not just paying, we have to pay the appropriate price, the appropriate tariff. We have to all desist from the usual Nigerian theft. There's a huge, every minute somebody is stealing energy somewhere in this country. This is a country where people like stealing. Stealing has become a culture. Stealing energy, bypassing electricity, and you will be surprised. Big men do it, big men, rich people, not just poor ones. And the collapse of the grid is because of the dilapidated infrastructure, that's number one. Because of the fact that there are challenges at the interface between generation, transmission, and of course distribution. So instead of blaming the TCN or blaming the government or blaming the operators, I think we should look at the whole thing without being emotional in a holistic way and ask the question, why don't we have light? We don't have light because we have not invested enough in the system, because in this country, even when you give light to a community, it is a difficult thing for you to collect your money. Even when you give people prepaid meter, they find a way to bypass their meters. And I can give you an example from Ikeja GRA in Lagos, home of very rich Nigerians, to Asoko in Abuja, to a place called Bompai in Kano, to a place called, there's a place in Jos. These are highbrow, top people area. And you wonder, when you see the way, Nigerians want electricity, but most people want it free of charge. I saw some tweets where some of our people this morning are saying, I don't know there's any subsidy. And with all the money, we are paying so much. The question people should be asking is, how much does it cost to produce a kilowatt hour of electricity? It is when you know the cost of production of bread by the baker in a bakery that you can determine the cost of bread. You cannot just sit down and say, I want to eat bread. I don't care about how the farmer grows wheat. You don't care about how the wheat gets to the flour mill, how the flour mill produces flour, before the baker, the owner of the bakery, gets the flour and other ingredients to produce bread. And when this bread is produced, there's a need for transportation. Along the value chain of bread, there's a need for transportation from the farm, taking the wheat to the flour mill, from the flour mill to the bakery, taking flour to them, and from the bakery, taking bread to the retailers. And all these associated costs have to be factored in when you talk about the cost or the price of bread. The same thing applies to electricity. And people need to understand that. May I again apologize to the very honest, patriotic Nigerians who are willing to pay for electricity. May I apologize to them that, of course, we as operators have not served them well enough in the last 10 years. Right. I think we can do better than we're doing, but I think people need to understand the issues, not just naming, blaming, and claiming. Somebody said, take away all of them. We don't want them, change them. There have been a lot of changes in the last 10 years. A friend of mine, a colleague of mine, said, if a house is defective, is a house that is structurally defective, and you want to repair it, you don't repair the house by changing the furniture. You just come, you just paint the room, paint the house, change the furniture. You have not addressed the structural defect. I think that part
if I'm about in here, if I'm about in here, I see the points you're making, but let's just go back a little bit, because when you're about to start a business, now I'm talking about the discos now, and the government. When you're about to start a business, I'm sure the discos would have done their studies, because some people had claimed that, look, I've been issued from the beginning, this was meant to fail. Maybe you address that, because that's actually the high point of my question. Why people felt that this was designed to fail in the first place? What were the defects already seen? Because some of the things you're raising, you can't blame citizens, you can't blame businesses. Yes, we have our responsibility. But before you came into business, as a disco, I suppose you would have done your studies and know how you can break even and the things you need in terms of all the elements of that business to succeed. Now, we're seeing this. In fact, sometimes we see government is owing discos, discos are owing government, and all that blame back and forth. So what were the failures, issues that were there that you, from your perspective, no matter who comes to do what, this will not work at the end of the day, if you get my drift?
Thank you very much. My dear brother, well, I don't know for how long you've been working for Channel TV, but this question you're asking me, exactly this question was asked in this studio in July 2015 by Maokpe Ogun. She was then Miss Maokpe Ogun. And let me tell you, all these issues about didn't they do their studies? There's nobody, there's no businessman that want to put his money down the drain. Every businessman that comes to invest in any business, anywhere in the world, Nigeria inclusive, will have done their studies. The system failed because we Nigerians ourselves, we have certain peculiarities. And I mentioned that in passing earlier when I said Nigerians would rather have electricity free of charge. Nigeria is the only country where I've seen people protesting, elite or educated people. They were protesting against toll gate. They don't want toll gate. That was in Lekki, in Lagos. They don't want to be paying for toll gate. I lived in England for over 26 years. There are some areas that we go that you pay. To go along a particular road, you pay. Because as they toll the road, they use that money to maintain the road. Same thing with electricity. So when the investor came on board in 2013, certain agreement was signed between them and the government. I'm an Egbaman, no, I'm not an investor. I'm not an investor in this sector. So I don't have any emotional or economic tie that will stop me from saying the truth. And it is sad that I have to go back in time to talk about exactly what we've discussed in this studio several times in another platform. Now, they signed an agreement with the government of President Goodluck Jonathan, who also meant well, but at the end of the day, the government did not keep their own side of the agreement. If you present a 10-point agenda and you say, my government will do number 1 to 5, Mr. Investor, you will do number 6 to 10. But the performance of 6 to 10 is predicated upon the performance of 1 to 5. My dear brother, if you fail to do 1 to 5, 6 to 10 will not happen. So these are issues that happen. And of course, I've been long enough in this sector to have witnessed so far now 3 governments, President Jonathan, President Buhari, and now President Tinubu. And when you look at the trajectory, you look at what has happened. And I think I have also witnessed not less than 3 or 4 ministers of power. And each of them meant well in their own way, but we have to address the root cause of the problem. The problem with Nigeria is, number 1, Nigeria in that time, at that point, when the problem started, as at 2013,
right.
Nigeria does not seem to respect the sanctity of contract. When you sign a contract with an investor, whether a foreigner or indigenous investor, you have to respect every word of that contract. The moment you renege or default, then they will start cutting corners. That is the truth. So that is number 1. Number 2, we cannot have electricity in Nigeria until all of us agree that we must know the cost of production.
Okay, Barrister
It's about cost.
Let me come in now. And I think you have reiterated that
Yes.
point, pardon me. And since we're talking about dates, I'd like to add another date to this conversation. January 2022, former President Muhammadu Buhari, in an exclusive interview with Channels Television, when he was speaking about this process, this was what he said. He said the whole privatization process was actually political favor. And that's why I beg to differ on that point that Jeffrey made about, going into business, making plans. And I'll take the words of the former president. He says that the people that own them, who are they? They don't have money. It's just a political favor. And he was speaking particularly to, what we call discos and the rest. So he actually looked through that process. As a president, of course, he had all of that information. And he said it categorically that it was political favor then. And that is at the heart of this conversation. I know some will say, don't let's go back, let's move forward. But we need to address those challenges. Because time and again, discos have called for, help from the government, saying we need funds and the rest. Just to put that on record, that the former president spoke to that point, which was raised. But you have said this time and again about the pricing, appropriate pricing. How much does it cost? So let's lay it bare, Barrister Odunto. You are the spokesperson for the distribution companies. So tell us, how much does it cost? And how much do you think appropriate pricing is? As you said, you want to lay it bare for Nigerians.
Okay. The cost of doing business in Lagos is different from the cost of doing business in Damaturu. And that's one of the problems that is affecting us when you talk about petrol or oil. The cost of doing business in Ilorin is different from the Port Harcourt, and so on and so forth. So, in the case of electricity, we haven't gone far and the regulator has done well so far that we even have what we call bands. Band A, Band B, Band C, Band E, Band D. Now, the different bands have to do with the commitment, the amount of hours on average that you can have electricity for. So, if you are in Lagos State, for instance, if you live in Magodo, you are definitely going to have more electricity than if you live in Okoba. Because electricity supply in Nigeria, the way Nigeria is wired, it is location-based. It is location-specific. It depends on exactly where you are. A lot of things need to be done. It has to do with a lot of investment. So talking about the cost that you asked for, on average, in some cases, residential customers pay an average of 54 naira per kilowatt hour. Now, when we talk about cost, we are talking about those who are paying that 54 naira, like today, as at this morning, those who are on 54 naira per kilowatt hour, the true cost that they should be paying is not less than 112 naira per kilowatt hour. So what happened to the gap between 54 naira and 112? Even this year, because by law, the regulator is, and the NEC, our regulator, they are doing a very difficult job. And they are trying their best to maintain the balance between the economic reality and, of course, the best thing for Nigerians. So when you look at, so every 6 months, the law requires them to do a review of the tariff, taking into consideration inflation, foreign exchange, and other economic indices. The last one that was done, which was to take effect from January last month, you know what happened? By the time they did all the computation, and for the sake of our viewers, let me say first that electricity in Nigeria, when we talk and we mention forex, people need to understand more than 80% of the equipment that we use in the Nigerian power sector are imported. So forex is very, very important. And you don't have to travel abroad. Iyaloja also knows that naira to dollar has gone up. So the tariff that should have started in January this year, if the actual cost is put to Nigerians to pay, I'm sure there will have been protests everywhere by now. The government decided, the federal government decided that, okay, let us know the true cost. This is the cost. In some places, 150 naira or 112 naira. They say, okay, let Nigerians continue to pay what they are paying. We will look for money and pay the shortfall. And that is why you did not see me or my colleagues trying to explain to people that because of the inflation rate in Nigeria, because of the forex where it is. Because when I came to Nigeria to start this job, I remember that Naira was less than 150 Naira to $1. And I know how much pound sterling and dollar is today. So with that kind of thing, that's why you hear about subsidy, okay? But again, we are not policymakers. It's for the government to determine how best we can make the sector liquid.
All right.
The issue of cost and how much people should be paying depends on, like I said, if you're on band A, you pay the highest, but you get the best.
How much?
If you're on band D, you pay far less than band C, band B, and band A. But whichever band you are on, I mean, in the last 3 weeks, it's been very tough for everybody, even those who are on band A, because there has been shortage of gas. As a result of that, there has not been electricity, and that's why I apologized at the beginning of this program, because it is not convenient at all.
So for those on band A, what are they paying? And those on band B, pardon me, those on band A, what are they paying? Those on band B, what are they paying?
My dear sister.
Average.
Thank you, my dear sister. I cannot give you that figure. There are 11 discos in the country. It varies from one location to another. And all of us can just go on the next website, NERC, that's our regulator. On their website, you see exactly what you pay if you are in Asokoro, or if you are in Sun City Estate, or wherever, or Lube, in Abuja, or anywhere in the country. So it varies. So I can't give you a figure and say, Band A pays this. I can only tell you that for Band A, you pay more than Band B because you get, on average, I want to say, if we say you get 16 hours of supply, it doesn't mean that every day you get 16 hours. Some days you get 24 hours. Some days you get 10. But on average, in a month, you see that you still come to an average of 16, thereabouts.
So what I can glean, pardon me.
The regulator has done. So, and I think we need to commend them for that. So I can't give you a figure, but it varies from one location to another, from one disco to another.
Okay, so what I can glean from what you're saying is, if, for instance, the cost of power is 54 Naira per kilowatt, government is probably paying a shortfall of 100 Naira per kilowatt for electricity consumers.
Yes.
That's the case, right?
If and when they pay. If and when they pay.
Okay, so that explains the loan. I'd like to take you up on the debt that government says it is owing. I'd like to take you up on your position about Nigerians wanting electricity and not wanting to pay for it. That may not necessarily be the case in all situations. If you consider the challenge of complaints by Nigerians of estimated billing, and of course, that problem that you have in fact apologized for about the value of the electricity supply in the first place. Many Nigerians are paying and they're not getting value for their money. I wonder how you'd respond to this.
Thank you very much, madam. Please give it to me. I've been doing this job now for over 10 years. And I came from a place with all sense of humility. I came from a country, I lived somewhere close to 32 years where things work, the United Kingdom. So I know the difference. I've worked in a sector similar to this, so I know the difference. Now, my job requires me to visit every state of this federation. And I thank God, because when people talk in Nigeria, I want all Nigerians to visit other parts of Nigeria. You see the ordinary man in Yola is not different from my people in Abeokuta. What they want in Yola, Kaduna, what they want in Port Harcourt or Uyo is the same. They want electricity. But in terms of when people say, give us electricity, give us prepaid bill that we will pay, I hear that all the time. I'm involved in a lot of community and customer engagements all over the country. So when I make a statement like this, when I say Nigerians want to use electricity free of charge, I do not mean every Nigerian. To be honest with you, I'm one person that does not believe in tribe. I'm a very proud Egba man from Ogun State. But I can tell you that there are good people everywhere in Nigeria, and there are bad people everywhere in Nigeria. So when I say people, I'm talking about, on average, there are very good people. There are people that are willing to pay. There are people that are saying, please, just give it to us, we'll pay. And let me tell you, everywhere we failed, and that's why I apologize, though. When I apologize, for us as Egba people, we don't apologize for no reason, no. But when we apologize because we feel that there's a gap. Something is missing. There's something we need to do that we have not done. What I'm saying is that we can do better than we are doing. Even at this cause, we are not efficient enough, so we need to do more. Now, what I'm saying is that if you give 100 million worth of electricity to a community, and we did that during COVID in a particular location.
All right.
I don't want to mention the name of the town. The primary ruler of that town called me and said, give my people light. We want light. Okay. And then we spoke with the disco and we did a test. Let's put this X amount of electricity into that neighborhood. At the end of the day, at the end of the month, the disco was only able to recover 13% of that money.
All right, Mr. Aduson, so we can squeeze in as much question as possible because we don't have the luxury of time. So there are proposals on the table. I remember the president at Chatham House, when he was campaigning, said the model is a bad one, is broken and has to be fixed. So perhaps what difference will it make with this decentralization idea as proposed by the minister? Of course, they've talked about this even, I think, in their manifesto. Will it make a huge difference?
Well, I can say that, save for a few hiccups or areas that they need to look at very well, I think the Electricity Act of 2023, as amended, will help this country a lot. Number one, it will increase efficiency because it places a lot of a significant emphasis on improvement in service across the board, from generation to transmission to distribution. It will bring more competition, which is good for the sector, for the country. It will also enable the states to participate. And with that, I hope the state will put on their thinking cap, because let's be honest, figures show that in recent months, states in Nigeria have collected a lot more allocation than they did in a long time.
Okay.
And the governor should be called to account.
Right.
It's not enough to just come out and say, I'm doing palliative, and you start saying you are sharing money or you are doing this. This is the time for them to invest in the electricity of their state.
Indeed.
So it will help.
Okay.
It will help.
Right, and I think this is good because I think it also opens up the market for some more competition of sorts. I know there are independent projects, and people, they even pay less than the premium you're expecting of the Nigerians to pay in some areas, in some certain cities. I don't just want to mention. But I'd like you to respond to this question, Barrister, from one of our viewers. There's been a lot of questions coming in. You understand Nigerians are really concerned when it comes to the power situation. And this is Emmanuel from Abia State saying, if electricity is same thing as bread, why do I have to provide my pole, wire, transformer, and the rest? Do I provide flour, nylon, firewood to the bakery? Why do I have to pray for NEPA, in this case distribution companies, to give me light after procuring units? Do I pray for the bakery to give me bread after paying for bread? So Emmanuel is faulting that analogy that you gave earlier on. I wonder how you respond to that.
Thank you very much. I want to say that the analogy is very, very relevant. Mr. Emmanuel, I want to give it to him. I want to assume that he is a honest Nigerian who pays for his utilities. So I can see where he's coming from. If Mr. Emmanuel truly pay, and if, of course, when you see people buying their poles, buying their cables, paying to repair their own transformer, that is part of the failure of the system. Why am I calling it the failure of the system? It is the distribution companies that should provide transformers, that should maintain it, that should always respond to fault clearing. And they do in some cases, in some locations. But why are they not doing it all the time everywhere? It is still about liquidity. Because if I'm the managing director of a disco, and I have 100, and I've seen this example, this is a real story. We have 175 requests for repair of transformer. And the money you have in your cover can only do 30. And you have 175 requests. This point I'm making happened in 2014. And the MD of that disco is no more there now. Happened to be an expatriate, a very honest man. He showed me the book. And then the question now is, out of 175, he had money to do 30. And I'll tell you why he doesn't have more money to do more than 30. But that 30, he had to now select the one he would do. You know what they did? He now said, go and check on our system, each of those transformers. Let us see the payment history, the debts, if any, on any of the transformers. My dear brother, huge debt in most of them. So he chose to repair the one where the customers were paying. But he called the mission of the others and said, this is your bill. You have not paid. This is what we send through this transformer to your neighborhood. And this is the amount of energy that has disappeared without trace. So one, let us work together and fish out the tips. Number two, go and pay part of this debt, part payment. Let's make an arrangement on payment. Then we'll do the repair. And in this case, he was able to.
Well, Barrister, that sounds like an isolated case, really. And I think this is not the case for others. That's an isolated case. These are Nigerians, honest Nigerians. It sounds like you're even angry with a lot of the consumers. And I imagine the consumers wondering, a lot of us are honest. We're paying from our hard-earned monies just to try to get power. But you said you have the data, but I just want to say that that is not the situation in its entirety. There are isolated cases, yes, but there are a lot of honest Nigerians.
And in addition to that, I was hoping you would take responsibility by saying it is us. You said it's the distribution companies. We introduced you as executive director of the Association of Distribution Companies. So you should be taking responsibility,
the spokesperson of Discuss.
A spokesperson. And then why should one consumer be taking responsibility for the debt of other people?
In 1 minute, we can answer us. Just 1 minute. Just a minute,
okay.
Sir.
Number one, when I say the distribution company, it means it is us. So it's not about me not taking responsibility. I'm very proud to be representing them, and I will say the truth and say it as it is. Number two, when you say, if I live in the neighborhood where there are more thieves than honest people, if on my street we are 20 on a transformer and 15 of us steal energy, there's no way they will give me electricity without giving the other 15 people. For that reason, we will not all have light. So that is me getting punished because of the thieves that surround me where I am. And I know thieves. There's nobody who does not know. In this studio, you cannot say that you have not heard about anything in your neighborhood if you live in Nigeria, unless you live among angels from heaven. You cannot say you have never heard of meter bypass. So when I talk about this, though, I'm not saying majority of Nigerians, though. Most Nigerians are good people, honest people. So
maybe Mr. Odoso, you use the most to cancel out the bad. Since we're in the majority, the good ones, I pay my bill. I'm sure my colleagues pay their bill.
Yeah.
Don't make us suffer for the bad element. So
but really,
yes.
People stealing electricity should stop.
Yeah,
and I think that's an important point to make.
We know they do. People do. People bypass. We agree. But we're saying we should not be suffering for those. The law has provided for such things. Mr. Adoto, we don't have any more time.
We're totally out of time. And we hope also that your enumerators, I think that's what they call them, will be diligent to fish out those who do a meter bypass in communities.
And so if many Nigerians see something, they should say something.
Say something, right? Yeah, so
maybe
many
put up an incentive that if I say something, I'll get something.
Yeah, so many issues to touch on.
If I say something, I'll get something, yes.
So many issues to touch on. But we'd like to thank you very much, Barrister Sunday Oduto, is the Executive Director, Association of Nigerian Electricity Distributors. Thank you so much for coming on the Morning Brief.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Wow, what a conversation, and we didn't exhaust it. We hope to, continue this conversation. Up next on the Morning Brief, we'll be taking a look at something very, very important that concerns how you're able to, beat the heat and humidity in this unique weather, for lack of words. So stay with us. You're going to profit from this conversation. We'll be right back.